Talk in English just 1 page per day. Elara stared at the English textbook, a heavy sigh escaping her lips. Another day, another mountain of vocabulary and grammar rules to conquer. The phrases swirled in her head, often making little sense, creating a constant hum of inadequacy. She felt utterly overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information, wishing there was an easier path, a magic shortcut to fluency. Her daily struggle felt monumental. "Why do I always make mistakes?" she muttered to her reflection. Every attempt to speak felt like wading through thick mud, each word a potential misstep. The fear of sounding foolish was a heavy cloak, smothering any spontaneous thought. This constant self-critique chipped away at her enthusiasm, making the learning process feel more like a punishment than an adventure. She watched people effortlessly converse in English on her phone screen. Their words flowed like a clear river, unburdened by hesitation or grammatical errors. How do people speak English so naturally, she wondered, a pang of envy piercing her heart. It seemed like an innate talent, something she simply lacked despite her diligent efforts and countless hours spent studying. Sometimes, a dark thought crept into her mind. Why should I even bother to learn English? The sheer effort seemed disproportionate to the slow progress. Perhaps it wasn't for everyone, she mused. Perhaps she was simply not wired for languages. This dangerous idea threatened to derail her entire ambition, whispering doubts into her weary ears constantly. Then, one quiet evening, a different perspective emerged from an online forum. The advice wasn't about more grammar drills or endless vocabulary lists. It was about small, consistent actions, transforming the overwhelming task into manageable pieces. A tiny seed of hope began to sprout in her heart, suggesting a path less traveled, potentially more fruitful. The first concept was incredibly simple: talk in English, just 1 page per day. It wasn't about speaking perfectly, but about speaking something. Writing a small paragraph, reading a single page from a simple book, or even summarizing a short video. This approach demystified the monumental task, making it feel achievable, less daunting. This wasn't about eliminating mistakes entirely. It was about acknowledging them as part of the journey. The goal shifted from flawless execution to consistent engagement. Elara realized that perfection was the enemy of progress, holding her captive in a cycle of fear and inaction. This new mindset began to free her. How to talk at home to yourself, the article prompted. It suggested narrating daily activities, describing objects, or even holding imaginary conversations. This sounded strange at first, almost silly, but the privacy offered a safe space for experimentation, free from judgment, allowing her to practice without external pressure or embarrassment. Elara began describing her breakfast aloud, albeit quietly, to herself. This is a bowl. It contains cereal. The milk is cold. Simple sentences, but they were her sentences, formed in real time. This internal monologue became a powerful tool, slowly building her confidence by internalizing the language patterns she longed for. While washing dishes, she'd narrate the process. I am washing the plate. It is a blue plate. Now I rinse it under the water. This mundane activity transformed into a mini-language lesson. Her mind, once a battleground of self-doubt, became a quiet laboratory for linguistic exploration, day after day, week after week. She even started having imaginary conversations with famous actors or fictional characters. What would she say to her favorite superhero? How would she explain her day to a wise old wizard? These playful scenarios stretched her vocabulary and encouraged spontaneous sentence formation, making practice less of a chore. Slowly, incrementally, her confidence began to sprout. The fear of mistakes lessened when only her own ears were privy to them. This private practice allowed her to experiment, to stumble, and to correct herself without the overwhelming pressure of a live audience. It was a safe haven for growth. The general question, how to learn English, now had a much clearer answer for Elara. It wasn't about cramming, it was about integrating English into her daily life in small, consistent doses. It was about active engagement, not passive consumption, and finding joy in the small victories along the way. The advice, start step-by-step talking, resonated deeply. Instead of aiming for fluent conversations immediately, she focused on single words, then short phrases, then simple sentences. Each tiny step was a victory, a brick laid in the foundation of her linguistic house, slowly but surely. She started by labeling objects around her home in English. Then, she tried to form two-word phrases, like red book or open door. Gradually, these became simple sentences. This incremental approach prevented burnout and built a solid foundation, reinforcing her commitment to the process. Elara learned to embrace her mistakes as learning opportunities, not failures. Each stumble provided feedback, highlighting areas for improvement rather than reasons for despair. This shift in perspective was profoundly liberating, transforming her struggle into a dynamic process of continuous learning and growth. She also incorporated more active listening. Instead of just hearing English, she tried to understand the nuances, the intonation, and the natural flow of conversations. Podcasts, movies with subtitles, and even short YouTube clips became her new classroom, immersing her fully in the language. Reading one page a day wasn't just about recognizing words, it was about comprehending the ideas. She started with children's books, then moved to simple articles, always focusing on understanding the overall meaning rather than getting stuck on every single unfamiliar word, building fluency. Her daily day's struggle began to transform. It was no longer a battle against herself, but a gentle daily practice. Some days were easier than others, but the consistency was key. She realized that progress wasn't linear but a series of ups and downs, always trending upwards. Every time she successfully formed a new sentence, understood a complex phrase, or even just remembered a tricky word, she celebrated. These small victories fueled her motivation, reinforcing the positive feedback loop and making the entire learning journey feel much more rewarding and enjoyable. How to make confidence in speaking? This question, once a source of anxiety, now had a practical answer. It wasn't about sudden breakthroughs, but consistent, gentle exposure and self-compassion. Confidence was a muscle, and she was building it, one small repetition at a time, every single day. She understood that consistency was far more important than intensity. 20 minutes every day was better than 5 hours once a week. This steady rhythm ingrained the language patterns deeply, making English a natural part of her routine rather than an isolated, daunting task she dreaded. Elara started finding topics she genuinely enjoyed in English: cooking videos, travel vlogs, comedy sketches. Learning became less of a chore and more of a pleasure. When curiosity drove her, the language acquisition felt effortless, almost an unconscious process, seamlessly blending with her hobbies. Eventually, she felt brave enough to seek out low-stakes conversations. An online language exchange partner, a friendly cashier at a tourist spot, or even just commenting in English on a social media post. These small interactions were terrifying initially, but immensely rewarding for her. The fear of judgment was still present, but it was shrinking. She realized that most native speakers were encouraging and patient, not critical. They appreciated her effort more than they noticed her occasional grammatical slip-ups, which bolstered her courage significantly. There were moments of pure joy, understanding a joke in a movie without subtitles, following a complex news report, or having a simple conversation with a stranger. These were the true rewards, demonstrating tangible progress and validating all her consistent hard work. English became less of a test and more of a tool. It opened up new worlds of information, entertainment, and connection. It transformed from an academic subject into a living, breathing skill that she could wield to explore diverse cultures and perspectives globally. Every mistake was no longer a sign of failure but a data point. It indicated a gap in her knowledge, a new area to focus on. This cyclical process of making mistakes, learning from them, and improving became her natural rhythm, making her stronger. She also learned the importance of context. Often, she didn't need to understand every single word to grasp the overall meaning. This realization relieved immense pressure, allowing her to infer and deduce, which mirrored how native speakers often communicate naturally. Her passive listening transformed into active listening. She started dissecting sentences, identifying verb tenses, and noticing common idiomatic expressions. What once sounded like an indistinct blur now contained discernible patterns, becoming much clearer and easier to comprehend. The habit of talk in English just one page per day became second nature. It wasn't a chore anymore but an ingrained part of her daily routine, like brushing her teeth or making coffee. This consistency was the silent engine of her progress. The thought, why you should not learn English, now seemed absurd. The benefits far outweighed the initial struggles. The world had expanded, opportunities had appeared, and her confidence had soared, proving the initial cynical thought utterly wrong. She observed how people speak English with new eyes. She noticed their pauses, their fillers, their natural hesitations, human elements that she had previously overlooked. They weren't perfect robots, they were just communicating effectively, often stumbling a bit too. Elara realized that her English didn't have to sound like anyone else's. It was her voice, her accent, her unique way of expressing herself. This realization was incredibly liberating, freeing her from the pressure of sounding native and allowing her authentic self to shine. The omnipresent question, why I always make mistakes, faded. Mistakes became less frequent, and when they occurred, she simply corrected them or moved on, rather than letting them paralyze her. They were stepping stones, not stumbling blocks in her progress. Her internal monologue included self-correction. No, not go to, but went to. This immediate feedback loop, practiced in the safe confines of her mind, solidified correct patterns and accelerated her learning process significantly, making her very efficient. How to talk at home to yourself, remained a cornerstone of her practice. It was her safe haven, her linguistic gym, where she could flex her English muscles without fear of judgment. It was surprisingly effective and incredibly empowering. Her learning strategy for how to learn English continued to evolve. It wasn't a static plan but a dynamic process, adapting to her needs and progress. She experimented with new resources and methods, always curious, always striving for better. My daily day's struggle had transformed into my daily English routine. It was no longer a burden but an anticipated part of her day, bringing her closer to her goals. The consistent effort compounded, leading to remarkable improvements over time. For how make confidence in speaking, she found that starting small in public interactions was key. Asking for directions, ordering food, or making a simple purchase. Each successful interaction, no matter how brief, built a layer of self-assurance. She cultivated a positive mindset, reminding herself that learning a language was a marathon, not a sprint. Every small step mattered, and setbacks were temporary. This mental resilience was as crucial as any language technique she employed. The principle, start step by step talking, remained her guiding light. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was fluency. Patience and persistence, combined with consistent, manageable steps, were the true architects of her success, ensuring lasting progress. The journey to learn English was ongoing, never truly finished, but now filled with joy and discovery instead of dread. Every new word, every nuanced phrase, was a treasure found, enriching her life in countless unforeseen ways and opening new avenues. From an isolated learner, she blossomed into a confident communicator. The world felt smaller, more accessible, thanks to her growing proficiency. She could connect with people from diverse backgrounds, understanding their stories and sharing her own. Learning English had a ripple effect on other areas of her life. Her problem-solving skills improved, her patience grew, and her ability to embrace challenges strengthened. It wasn't just about language, it was about personal growth and resilience. She sometimes looked back at her initial frustration, remembering the despair that clouded her early attempts. It served as a powerful reminder of how far she had come, a testament to the power of consistent effort and a change in perspective. The freedom to express herself, truly express herself, in another language was exhilarating. She could articulate complex thoughts, share jokes, and even argue a point, something that once seemed utterly impossible, a distant, unattainable dream. Now, when asked for advice, Elara shared her story. "Don't focus on perfection," she'd say. "Focus on consistent effort, embrace your mistakes, and talk to yourself. Just 1 page a day, that's all it takes to build momentum." She emphasized the importance of enjoying the process. If it felt like a chore, it wouldn't last. Finding joy in the small wins, in the discovery of new words, in the sound of her own improving voice, was paramount to sustained success. Learning English was not a destination but a lifelong journey. There would always be new words, new idioms, new nuances to discover. And she was excited for every step of that ongoing adventure, embracing the continuous learning process. That simple philosophy, talk in English just 1 page per day, became her mantra. It proved that monumental goals are achieved through tiny, consistent efforts, accumulating into significant progress over time, much like a flowing river. The cynical, "why you should not learn English," dissolved completely, replaced by an overwhelming sense of gratitude and empowerment. The doors it opened were countless, from career opportunities to richer travel experiences and deeper cultural understanding. She now understood how people speak English. It wasn't magic, but a lifetime of immersion and practice. Her own journey, though accelerated, mirrored this natural acquisition, fostering empathy and deeper understanding of linguistic development. Her mistakes were no longer embarrassing but badges of courage, signs that she was trying, stretching, and growing. "Why I always make mistakes" became, "how can I learn from this mistake?" a powerful shift in mindset. The seemingly odd practice of "how to talk at home to yourself" had been her secret weapon, the foundation of her burgeoning confidence. It provided the safe space necessary for uninhibited practice, leading to remarkable improvements swiftly. Her understanding of how to learn English had broadened immensely. It wasn't just textbooks, it was podcasts, movies, self-talk, and real-world interactions. A holistic, integrated approach was truly effective, yielding fantastic results. My daily day's struggle had evolved into a triumph of dedication and perseverance. Each day brought new insights, new words, and a stronger voice, proving that consistent effort truly pays off in unexpected, wonderful ways. For how make confidence in speaking? The answer was simple: just speak. The more she spoke, the more comfortable she became. Consistent practice, even with errors, was the ultimate confidence builder, silencing her inner critic gradually. Her journey was a powerful testament to start step-by-step talking, and the ultimate goal to learn English. It proved that anyone, with the right mindset and consistent effort, could conquer the language and unlock new possibilities.